Hey, this is Scott Snyder, the writer of American Vampire, Barnstormers, Witches, White Boat, and Batman, lots of other comics, and you are listening to the best comic podcast around, the Oblivion Bar Podcast.
Welcome to the Oblivion Bar Podcast with your host, Chris Hacker and Aaron Knowles.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 196 of the Oblivion Bar Podcast. I'm your host that never leaves his home without his 18th century pistol and a Youchta Codex, Chris Hacker. And joining me is the soldier that taught the Predators how to laugh, my co-host and BFF, Aaron Knowles. Now I want to put in the Alan Silvestri. Dun, 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 dun. Dun, 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 dun. All right, everybody, this week on the show, we are talking about Dan Trachtenberg's latest installment in the Predator franchise, Killer of Killers. Now, Aaron, this was a little bit of a
Dylan.
Audible. You son of a bitch.
Son of a bitch.
Here's the thing, everybody. This was a little bit of an audible. Aaron and I, and I'll say this truthfully, Aaron, much more of a fan than I am, but I think we were both, I would say, decently to very big fans of the Predator franchise. I've been on record, and I stand by this, that Predator 1987 film is my favorite action film of all time. It's actually not even really close. I think that first Predator movie it's quotable, it's badass, it's amazing. Everything about it just works. I think it's maybe Arnold Schwarzenegger's best film, and that's including T2. So, I just absolutely love it. And then Aaron, I'm gonna let you speak on sort of your love of Predator. And
let you finish.
No, I'm gonna let you finish. Yeah. Beyonce had the best album of all time.
I gotta ask real quick. Have you ever seen Arnold Schwarzenegger's The Running Man?
I feel like I have, but those action films kind of blend together.
Okay, you would. This is one that you
would know that one.
Very unique. So
okay, sure. But yeah, like I said, absolutely love this franchise. Aaron, tell the people a little bit about sort of your love of Predators and actually why we're talking about Killer of Killers this week.
Well, I grew up on alien films. I've always had a massive crush on Sigourney Weaver.
I asked you to talk about how much you love Predator, and the first thing you say is aliens.
I'm getting to that. Okay.
I know, it's just funny.
Because I'm wearing an alien shirt right now. People may not be able to see it, but I'm wearing an alien shirt. Chris is wearing a Predator shirt. It just happened to work out so perfectly like this. But I say that because I grew up on Aliens and Predator, the franchises, like the titles, and not just the movies. Like, I went hardcore into it as a kid. I started reading Predator novels. I started reading Alien versus Predator novels, and I started reading Alien novels. And that's all I read. I had a huge collection of them, and I read them like multiple times over and over again.
Is that the S.D. Perry novels from back in the day from Dark Horse?
Yeah.
I have some of those too.
I still have all of mine from when I was younger, and I refuse to ever give them up. They're just such good books, and they go into the lore of, again, the Youchta's history and how they are, because they're a pack species, they're hunting packs, and it's so incredible to get that little background and then to see it, a lot of it actually applied into some of these films. But it's also a little irritating because, and we'll talk about it, there's some things that occur in this film that don't really line up with that lore, with what we know biologically with Predators. And so we'll get to that. But again, that's how big of a nerd I am. I can point out when something is not necessarily biologically possible with the Predators, okay?
Based on previous canon, right?
Yes.
Because we're seeing a lot of this with Star Wars as well. Obviously there was a long storied history of Star Wars canon in between, the original films and then eventually the prequels in the 2000s. And what Disney did when they bought Star Wars was basically take bits and pieces. You've got Thrawn, you've got some of the Mandalorian backstory, some of the old Republic stuff. They bring that into a sort of newer, refurbished canon. And I think we're seeing a similar thing with Dan Trachtenberg and sort of his new heading of this, not only Predator franchise, but Aaron, you sort of alluded to it and I sort of made fun of you for it, but also the Alien franchise. I think they're very purposefully and very naturally, and I think for fans like us, very appealingly combining these two histories together.
Yeah, the unfortunate thing is I'm just gonna say the non-super fan, the people you can be an absolute fan of just the Predators from the film, just the franchise, but there's so much more that goes into it. A lot of people just don't understand that there has been a connection much decades before watching these Predator films and knowing that they've battled the aliens. You know,
Predator 2.
Predator
was
2
the first time.
was, you see, yeah, and that was just kind of technically like an Easter egg, but it actually alluded to the depth of their relationship in so many ways that just like, oh, that's a cool Easter egg. No, that's actually like some historical shit right there.
That's
like,
right.
Like fucking tighten your belts, friends.
Well, before we get into Killer of Killers, we have some news and notes. We also want to briefly put this on your radar. If you haven't found out yet, we've had many interviews this week, Aaron. We've talked to a lot of creators. Up first, we had Jake Williams and Tim Seeley from over at the Kaisei universe with Godzilla at IDW.
That was what an amazing conversation, man.
Yeah, very fun to talk to both Tim and Jake about that brand new shared universe over at IDW with Godzilla. Again, another huge fandom corner of Aaron's. I also kind of slightly like it, a little less than Predator and Aliens, but I do like Godzilla. So Aaron was definitely nerding out with that conversation with Tim and Jake. Highly recommend that conversation.
Ugh.
We also recently talked to John Kissy, the creator of Dr. Risby, The Tales from the Deep.
Yeah.
And Aaron, I'll let you speak on your conversation with John because unfortunately I was not there.
Yeah, he was what a fucking sweetheart, man. Like he was like very sad that you couldn't be there, but we had like such a great conversation about like his Dr. Rigby Volume 1 and how like amazing, because I literally I read through it so quickly, and I went,
he was nice enough to send us the entire first spread, so thank you, John, for that.
Absolutely. And I went back, I think I read that thing probably at least 2 times. And I just loved the vibe of it. I love the art. I love the style. I love the horror / sci-fi / like there's like this like gothic horror, but it's like Cthulhu. If you like things that are like
a little bit of Cthulhu, a little bit of James Bond in there too.
Exactly.
Like,
the guy who hosts the Twilight Zone. It hits so many, like if you like Warehouse 13, if you like the show like Eureka, if you like
Weird Science,
if you like any of this stuff, like this is a series for you, and I highly recommend checking it out because it is so much fun to read. And again, John he's so talented. He's so like just stoked about people reading these stories, and the fact that he did it all by himself, which we go heavily into during the conversation. Man, I had such a good time. We had such a good time chatting together, and it was like that's how I want to approach creators, because when they're like cool and down to earth like that, and we can just shoot the shit over what they've made and they genuinely love it and they're excited for people to read it. It's not because they want to make money. It's not because he wants to make money. He just wants people to see what he thinks is cool, and I admire that a lot.
Nobody gets into comics to make money, I'll tell you that. You know what I mean?
I've heard that before.
Yeah, and listening to that conversation and editing it together, I could tell that it was a lot of fun to be there, and John seems like such a nice guy. Very sad that I couldn't be there that time, but I will definitely be there the next time. But Aaron, one conversation I was there for, one that I'm very excited that people have found a lot of enjoyment in, I've heard a lot of good feedback from, is our conversation with Christopher Priest, the legend in the comic medium, the gentleman who essentially reformatted Black Panther for today's audience and sort of brought it into the new day from Don McGregor and Stan Lee and Jack Kirby's runs from the Jungle Action stuff into the Marvel Knights era from the late to mid 90s. So love talking to Christopher Priest, and we even got some Superman Lost questions in there. And if you've been listening to the show for long enough, you definitely know that Aaron was a huge fan of Superman Lost and had a little bit of trouble sort of attaching himself to a Superman comic, which I still find a little crazy. I'm not here to judge because I know there's a ton of Superman comics and tastes vary, but any entry point, Aaron, as we always say here on the show, any entry point you can find into the love of a character and find that sort of value in a character is important. And if it was Superman Lost for you, that's amazing. And that was a really cool moment to hear you guys discuss Superman Lost along with the Black Panther conversation we had with Mr. Priest. So go check those out. Before we get into our news and notes, Aaron, will you please let the listeners know, again, I know we've been talking a lot here in the opening, but it feels like we haven't done like a real normal episode in a bit.
Yeah.
We did the Thunderbolts a couple weeks ago, which we'll talk about here in a moment. But besides that, it seems like we haven't done like a normal episode in a long, long time.
Yes. But before I get into that, I just want to throw my 2 cents into the Christopher Priest.
Oh, sure.
When we get these particular individuals onto the show who have such a deep like thread wound into the historical tapestry of comics like him, it is honestly like, it's like an honor to be able to speak to these guys and to get their like truth from them about their experiences in the comic industry, dealing with certain titles, dealing with, certain IPs. Like it is so eye-opening because you get this little peek behind, we already talked to a lot of creators, so we get a peek behind the curtain. But when you get that peek behind the curtain, that's behind the curtain, it's even more special for us. And so it's just an amazing opportunity to really get into, what you call the nitty-gritty of the industry and the process of comics and their creative process. So I just feel exceptionally grateful to be able to have that opportunity and talk to him about his experience in the comic industry. And so again, I would love to send a shout out and say thank you to Christopher Priest for Mr. Priest for coming on the show and just being an incredible guest. But yeah, if you want to support the Oblivion Bar podcast, if you want to help us have some more amazing conversations, consider checking out our Patreon. For your support, you can gain access to bonus episodes each week called The Grid, behind the scenes look at how we prepare each episode with our transcripts. We do Patreon polls. We do a lot of interaction with our Patreon community, and we love it. We just did a grid recently where we had one of our most loyal patrons, send us some voice messages, and we discussed what he was talking about. So you guys can go check that out. You can even check it out with a 7-day free trial. Go to patreon.com/Oblivion Bar Pod, or there's a link in the show notes. Another thing that we do, we give a ton of free shit away. Like, we just love giving out and treating our patrons the same way they treat us, with love. And we appreciate them being here. And also, the other way that you can support the show is just by giving us a 5-star review on Google, on Spotify, wherever you listen to your podcast. A review would help. It'll get us into the specific algorithms, and it's a free way to support the show. So thank you so much for listening.
All right, let's go ahead and get to our news and notes.
News and notes.
Alrighty, our news and notes segment is sponsored by Oni Press. If you're craving for comics that defy the ordinary, and a publisher that not only allows it but encourages its creators to tell their story the way they want to, look no further than Oni Press, the loudest thing in color since 1997. Check out their upcoming titles over at onipress.com or follow them on social media at Oni Press. Aaron, first up here for our news and notes, we have DC Studios announces an animated series for Mr. Miracle. So you already know, if you've listened to the show long enough, we are huge Tom King and Mitch Gerard's shills. We love both of them individually, but also as a team. We've had them on the show together. We've had Tom on the show, I think, 3 times or maybe possibly 4 times. He's been on with Elsa Chartier. He's been on with Mitch. He's been on twice by himself. So yeah, 4 times total. So this is incredible news. And Aaron, if I can take you back, you and the listener both back a couple years. 2017, I was really getting into comics in a serious way. This is like Wizard of Oz wind that's happening right now.
I don't know. It's just like that's the ambient sound when you time travel.
Okay, got it. I thought it was like Doctor Who sounds. 2017, I'm getting really into comics.
Sorry.
And
anytime I get a chance to make sounds, I'll fucking do it. I'm sorry. My wife hates
Who
it.
even needs a soundboard when I have you to just make noises?
That's bean.
Okay, real quick, do what's the one we did for Battle Royale? The slipping noise.
Oh, whoop, 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 whoop.
There it is. Yeah. Okay. Perfect. All right. No more. 2017. I'm getting into comics in a real way, and Mr. Miracle played a huge part in that. It was, I'd read comics that were sort of genre defining and were more than just your casual funny book. They weren't your typical superhero story, but I think it was Mr. Miracle that really drove me in a certain direction of, and Aaron, I've talked to you a lot about this, where I no longer follow stories based on character. I follow them by creative team. And I attribute a lot of that to Tom King and Mitch Gerard's on Mr. Miracle. I'm so happy this is happening. So let's get into it. So based on the multiple Eisner Award-winning 12-issue comic by good friends of the show, Tom King and Mitch Gerard's, this new series will bring one of DC's most psychologically layered characters to the screen in a bold way. Tom King will also serve as executive producer and showrunner. That's exciting because not only is he working on that, but he's also working on the Green Lantern live action show for DC Studios and Max.
He's a busy guy.
He's a busy guy.
Will we still see him at conventions?
I think we should still see him. I mean, I would hope so. People who don't are in the know. We represent him as a creator for the company that we both work for called Comic Sketch Art. And Tom, I feel like, is at every show. I think I've maybe been to like one show in the last 5 years that he hasn't been there as well. He loves conventions. So I hope that he still goes to these. So he'll be working on this. He's working on Supergirl, the movie, the live action Supergirl one of tomorrow. He's working on, again, Green Lanterns. And then I think he is working on Superman, or at least he was in some capacity. So he's busy, is what I'm trying to say. Now, Aaron, I want to ask you really quickly before we move on. Have you ever read Mr. Miracle? Has it even been of an interest to you at all?
It absolutely has. And only because of, when we work with CSA, I always look at Mitch Garrett's pages and I love his art. I love what he's done with Mr. Miracle and the realness of him. And also, of course, he is married to Big
Aaron's
Barda.
biggest crush.
One of my big crush, but
the muscle mommy.
I need to get like a commission of just Big Barda, life size. No, but
I own one of those pages, Aaron. I own a page from issue 9 of Mr. Miracle.
But anyways,
which I'm very excited
to get to the point. I do want to read this, and I'm actually really shocked at myself right now because that might be the next thing. I might bump that up to the front of the reading list because I just, after many times suggesting it, I just read through all of the what's available of what I know is available of Local Man. And so this is perfect timing for me to get into Tom King and Mitch Garrett's Mr. Miracle run.
Yeah, absolutely. I highly recommend it. For people who haven't read it, 110%. And for Aaron here as well, the story is sort of based around Scott Free, who is Mr. Miracle. He is the greatest escape artist in the universe. Time and again, he has thwarted Darkseid's forces from invading Earth and New Genesis, and his nail-biting exploits have made him a celebrity. But beneath the fame, his perfect marriage, and his seemingly perfect life, something is eating away at him, making him question whether he can pull off the ultimate trick, escaping death itself. Now, I will say, without major spoilers, of course, because I want everyone to read this with next to no information, what this story, I think, sort of centers on is Scott becoming a father. I think that's the central pillar of this story, is that him and Big Barda have finally decided to take that next step. And I know personally that Tom has said that he wrote this while he was becoming, I think it was actually Mitch was drawing this as he was becoming a new father. So I find it really, really interesting and really compelling. Not only that, but sort of understanding your significance in a young person's life, but also when you become a parent, it becomes so central to your personality and your focus, and everything around you becomes second to being a parent. It's really beautiful stuff.
And it's funny because if you follow Mitch on social media, you can see how much he loves being a father.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's very inspiring because he is such a, just like, everything is like, if it's not about, supporting artists or supporting, his comics, whatever, it's about supporting his family and being a father. And it's so inspirational, and it's so like, just, I don't know, it evokes like some just really warm feelings. And so I'm excited to read this, and then I'm excited to talk to him about it and be like,
we're going to have him on the show. We're going to have these two on the show before the series comes out. 100%. Yeah. And I want to say just really quickly, without doing too much ass kissing, too much fart sniffing here in the middle of the show, is that I absolutely love Tom King and Mitch Garrett. I will take zero slander from either one of those guys, again, either separately or as a team. Tom gets a lot of hate for his Batman run for some reason, which, if it's not your cup of tea, read the other 11 things that Tom King has done extremely well. And I have never met anybody who said they don't like Mitch Garrett's, either as a person or as an artist. So I will take zero slander. I will not accept it. You will get full fists from me. Moving on here, we have The Project marks the second adult animated series from Gunn and Safran-led DC Studios after Creature Commandos. Aaron, have you caught up on Creature Commandos?
I haven't watched a moment of it.
You son of a bitch. It's really good. All right. Which has already locked in a second season. So Aaron, you better catch up before season 2. Over on the newly named, which we have not talked about somehow, HBO Max. Went from HBO to HBO Go to HBO Max to HBO.
Now it's just Max.
Now it's Max. And then now it's going back to HBO Max. I don't know if you heard this or not, but it's going back to HBO Max.
Sons of bitches.
Other animated projects currently in development at DC Studios include Starfire, My Adventures with Green Lantern, and DC Superpowers. So again, very excited for this. Can't wait for this to come out. Get more details on this. If Tom and Mitch are involved in some way or in a large way, I doubt this will not be incredible. So, Aaron, let's move on here.
I just think it's funny that there's like a show. I don't think it's on HBO Max or anything, but there's a show where it's like they gave a personality or like AI personalities to like all of the bat vehicles.
Oh, okay.
It's just so it's like cars, but it's all the bat vehicles.
Is it for kids? Is it a kids show?
Yeah.
Okay,
it's a kid show.
All right.
Let's see. So yeah, let's get into the other side of the fence with Marvel, shall we?
The other big two.
The other one of the big two. So the Thunderbolts
Bummer.
fails to break even at the box office. Well, the numbers are in for Marvel's Thunderbolts, and they do not look great, despite strong reviews from random people and
us included. We've reviewed it here on the show. We liked it.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, you didn't like it as much as I did, but you did like it.
Correct. Yeah. And being framed by Disney CEO Bob Iger as the poster child of Marvel's quality over quantity comeback, the film is now officially set to not break even at the global box office. So we're 6 weeks in, and Thunderbolts has only pulled in about 371 million worldwide. That's million. And to break even, it needed to hit around 425, which is, I think, 18 above where the Eternals landed.
Yeah, we discussed not too long ago how the Eternals somehow made more money than this
during COVID. The production budget was trimmed to 180 million and the marketing spend capped at 100 million, which was lower than Marvel's usual blockbuster budgets. It also didn't help that the film was in theaters for less than a month in most markets. Yeah. Which is weird because I feel like that's not a Marvel choice, like or a Disney choice, unless it was very intentional for some reason. But Marvel,
honestly, I feel like that's most theaters now. Most theaters only create enough space for a certain number of big box office hitters.
Well, there's so much coming out. They don't have time to keep everything in for months at a time like they used to. And also, I think it's also pre-planning because majority of these movies, depending on how well they do or don't do, at some point they'll bring them right back.
Right. Yeah, we just saw that recently with Snow White, how it bombed during the beginning part of the year, and then it bombed just recently.
Yeah, so it's Morbin time.
That's right.
Let's see. Marvel dominated the Infinity Saga era with 19 of its 22 films crossing the $500 million global mark, and now only 6 of the 13 multiverse saga entries have done the same.
Yeah, that's not good. I mean, and to be fair, Aaron, we've said it here on the show, and I don't think it's really, we're not breaking news or we're not making a hot take here. The multiverse saga has not been as good. I mean, just top to bottom. I mean, I think a top tier multiverse film like a Deadpool and Wolverine or a Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 is still an upper tier in Infinity Saga, but barely. Like it's like Black Panther, Age of Ultron, that tier of Iron Man tier of film. It's not anywhere near as like Winter Soldier or Endgame or the first Avengers film or any of those, right? Guardians of the Galaxy 1 and 2.
I recently rewatched just for the shits and giggles, Deadpool and Wolverine.
Yeah.
And again, just as amazing as the first time I watched it.
Yeah.
I think I could literally watch that movie back to back and still find like entertaining things about it.
Whenever Olivia and I went through and watched the Infinity Saga together, because she had never seen most of, if not all of the original MCU films, those first 22. After we finished them all, I was like, we do not have to watch any other MCU films. We don't have to continue on that same path. Anything you want to watch afterwards, totally fine with me. The only movie she wanted to watch was Deadpool and Wolverine, and she loved it.
Yeah.
So,
you know what I recently showed Carly?
What's that?
Galaxy Quest.
Nice. I've been trying to do it. I've been trying to sneak it in there.
Oh my God. She loved it. And it's so funny. We should just I'm telling you, we should do an episode on Galaxy Quest. I think that would be great. I think we should do that. I need any excuse. I need any excuse to rewatch it over and over again. Actually,
Rainn Wilson's birthday. Let's watch Galaxy Quest.
Yes.
Anything.
So what's next for the MCU, Chris? It looks like Marvel's done playing it safe with B tier characters, and the studio's upcoming slate is stacked. Just stacked.
Yep.
So high. With heavy hitters. The Fantastic Four First Steps comes out next month. Are you ready?
I'm ready. I'm so ready.
Avengers Doomsday and Spider-Man Brand New Day are coming out in 2026. And then we'll see Avengers Secret Wars and a mystery installment, which...
Did you see that?
No.
By the way, they randomly put a secret installment after Secret Wars. in the fall slot, which they haven't really, how Kevin Feige comes out and does that big slideshow of like all the films they're going to put out for the next 5 to 7 years. They haven't done that since the beginning of the multiverse saga. So there are rumors that either they're trying to purposely keep this a secret, or we could be getting a reboot, which I think is sort of the prevailing theory at this point, is that by the time that we get to Doomsday and then eventually Secret Wars, this will be a soft reboot for the MCU. We'll have a new Iron Man, we'll have a new Captain America, all those things. So
what if they just redid like exactly as it was, redid like the first like installment, like all the like the Infinity War saga, but just with
shot for shot
new actors.
That's America's ass. I can do this all day. But it's just Orlando Bloom or
it's
something.
It's just Orlando Bloom. It's Tom Cruise as Iron Man.
Glenn Powell as Captain America, Well, Aaron, let me ask you this. Can B-list comic book characters, you mentioned how like Marvel's done with the B-list characters. Do you think that a B-list character can carry a franchise in 2025?
Personally, I think yes. If done correctly. If they don't, okay, so they are shoehorning the wrong characters into wrong levels of entertainment, wrong levels of medium. So
do you have an example?
Yes, WandaVision. Now, WandaVision was a great show. I'm not gonna lie, great show. But I don't think that they necessarily are. You know what? I'll leave it at that. They were a great show, but they should not have done Multiverse of Madness with the Scarlet Witch.
You didn't want her to be the villain?
Yes. I think that, and then like the other side of that is like Agatha all along. I don't think that should have been like a whole series. I think that maybe should have been like a streaming movie or something, know. And
or
then
those feature presents things that they did with like the Werewolf by Night. I think that's an incredible opportunity to do something like that.
Exactly. And then like again, not Guardians of the Galaxy, but Thunderbolts, break it into a season.
Yeah.
Because
6 episodes.
You could have told way more background for some of these, given a little bit more depth. And I don't understand it because like a lot of the quality of what they're putting in the theaters is the same quality that they're putting on the streaming services. So break it down. Show us a little bit of, I mean visually, not story-wise.
I would even argue visually, like Moon Knight looked pretty horrific.
True.
Parts of She-Hulk looked pretty bad. And
Loki was amazing.
Loki was great. I love Loki. I think that a lot of the Disney Plus shows, they were bad in quality of like actual story and of visuals. Like they did the two things that they're supposed to do well. What are these movies? I know Martin Scorsese said this as a slight, but it's kind of true. These are roller coasters. We should go on these things as like a fun romp. And if you're going to do that, which I think that's the only way you can do this, is you have to make them visually appealing and appetizing.
Yeah. And don't fucking use AI for the credits.
Don't use AI for the credits.
Stupid
Secret Invasion,
shit.
You piece of shit. Yeah, absolutely. And we've already talked. I totally agree with you too. B-list characters can succeed in 2025. Guardians of the Galaxy is the obvious example. Peacemaker. These are both James Gunn's sort of bread and butter. He loves propping up B-list characters and putting them, or even C-list characters. Like, look at fucking Vigilante. Who even knew who that was before last year during Peacemaker?
Well, yeah. Those are the differences though, because you can have like, okay, so there's like the series, like Penguin. Penguin was absolutely perfect.
Yeah, really liked it.
Things like She-Hulk can be like a half an hour, like a full season of like half-hour episodes. The way they did WandaVision, where it was like longer episodes but fewer of them, was great. So it's based on like the character, like the development level of the character. Where again, like a She-Hulk base who's kind of just like to be honest, I love She-Hulk. You already know that. I love her as a character. I love that she breaks the fourth wall.
Muscle Mommy as well.
Muscle Mommy. She could go either way with being like, again, longer episodes because there's more to talk about. There's a lot of lore and a lot of history. Yep. But sticking at that like 30 to 35, 36 minute episodes, it's
40 minutes
max, And then if you did something like the Thunderbolts in like a show, a mini, like I'm not gonna say like a mini series, but I guess like a limited series where those are like longer episodes, like 45 minutes to an hour per episode. That's how you break them up.
So you're saying don't try to put a circle in a square.
Exactly.
Hole, right? Like some of these characters vary, depth varies. Like we don't need Moon Knight to be an hour long when we're really just trying to sort of get in the head of Mark Spector and sort of the multiple personalities and all those things. Whereas like Daredevil, maybe that requires an hour to tell the full story because you have Kingpin and you have Punisher and you have Matt and you have all these different people. So I totally agree there. Let's move on here. Aaron, a little bit more sad news from the comic book world. People who've been following the show know that I had this long-standing beef with Diamond, and I feel vindicated here, Aaron. I'll be honest with you. I feel like this totally proves my point from the very beginning, and I'm going to totally take my victory lap and I'm going to jog very slowly during this. No, I'm going to go through this quickly because
Do you ever watch Brooklyn Nine-Nine?
I've seen bits and pieces. Yeah.
Oh man, there's this episode where Commander Holt or Captain Holt, he goes,
Vindication!
That's me right now.
yeah, that's you right now. So
Yep. Well, the saga of Diamond doing Diamond things, Aaron, continues on because many things have happened since the last time we talked about these guys. I think we started talking about them back in January when they filed for Chapter 1 bankruptcy. And I'm going to give you just a quick rundown of what's happened since January. So Diamond sold to Alliance Entertainment all of its assets for around $72 million. That didn't include Diamond UK. And I should say really quickly as well, for people who just, for some reason, if you don't know who Diamond is, they were the biggest distributor of comics for a very long time. Since the Spectator boom of the 90s, Diamond was the end-all be-all monopoly of distribution until here recently during the COVID time frame where things started to falter, things started to go badly for them. And it opened up a lane for people like Lunar and for Penguin Random House to get in there and start taking some of that work. So then we learned there was a joint bid between Universal Distribution and Ad Populum that came in second and was named as a backup bid with a bid of $69 million, with Universal getting Alliance Gaming and Diamond UK and Ad Populum getting Diamond Comics, Diamond Toys, Diamond Select Toys, and everything else.
Mhm.
So at this point, we have two bids, one for $72 million from Alliance and then one for $69 million, nice, from Universal Distribution. So here's where things start to take a turn, and here's where Diamond starts to show themselves, starts to show their ass a little bit. The debtors had chosen the backup bid from Universal and Ad Populum instead of Alliance, despite Alliance having a way bigger bid. No reason was given. And actually, we still don't really know exactly why that happened. There could be some backdoor handshakes happening.
I think back room.
What'd I say? Back door?
Back door.
Back room? Yeah, you just open the back door, shake real quick, and then close it.
Maybe.
Alliance then filed a lawsuit because they're like, hey, bro, I gave you about $6 more million. Why the hell am I not getting this company? Diamond declared business as usual for retailers and such, but the court has threatened a Chapter 7 bankruptcy, which I actually don't know the difference between Chapter 11 and Chapter 7. Aaron, do you?
Fuck no.
Okay.
We weren't
it's
raised with financial knowledge. Like what did our
we're not billionaires.
We're not our parents, our preceding generations did not do a great job of teaching us financial terms. Okay.
Correct. Yeah. I don't even know what my credit score is right now. Just kidding. I do. Let's see here. So Alliance sued Diamond because of course they should, claiming fraud. Sale of Diamond to Universal and Ad Populum was approved by the courts. So that didn't work. Alliance didn't get that winning bid. Ad Populum paid more than we thought. So apparently it wasn't $69 million, but according to the actual court documents, it was $69 million. Layoffs started to begin to happen over at Diamond because of course they do. Diamond Select Toys officially closed down. So no more Diamond Select Toys. Courts withdrew that Chapter 7 bankruptcy threat. So it seems like things are starting to cool down a little bit. It seems like Universal has officially earned the rights to own Diamond. Diamond starts assuring comic book stores that everything is going to be fine. I'm being totally honest here. Totally believe me, everybody. I'm Diamond Comics. I've always been very truthful with you. Don't even worry about it. Everything's cool. Then very shortly after, they started to send letters to publishers that looked like it wasn't actually fine. And that now that they're looking for more money than they were originally asking for their products, and that they were also no longer to pay back the money they owed some of these comic stores that had been asking for money back during this acquisition, because that was part of it. Part of the deal was that if you were a distributor or if you were a retailer and you wanted to move your business over to, say, Lunar or Penguin Random House, you had that option. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Diamond would pay you your money back. Apparently, that's no longer the case, and now they're getting sued into oblivion.
Not here.
Not here. Yeah, not at the Oblivion bar. Another Oblivion, the worser of the Oblivions.
The shittier one.
Dynamite actually was one of those publishers that was like, hey, I need $1 million because you guys have been screwing us for a long time. There was a lot of back pay from Diamond to Dynamite. You had Unan and Manga Classic have now canceled all Diamond orders, which are two of the bigger manga distributors here in the U.S. You had Penguin Random House starts to close their special retailer joining offer. So that meant that if you were trying to make that switch over from Diamond to Penguin Random House, that window has closed officially. Penguin Random House is no longer accepting that. Diamond gets a fourth wave of funding and deadlines. Massive Distribution, who we've actually had here on the show, expands their distribution with Lunar, which is funny because Diamond once owned Massive. Big thing there. And I'm glossing through a lot of this, everybody. Yeah. So I apologize if we're going quickly. There's just been a lot that's happened since January. There have been problems with Ad Populum's first payments. So now that Universal owns Diamond, these payments that were going out to these retailers that with that back pay we were talking about were not those checks were not cashing. All right. I need my money on time. All right. Awkward. Ad Populum sues Alliance alleging breaches of confidentiality and staff poaching. So after the layoffs were happening, apparently Alliance was usurping a lot of these bigger higher ups at the previous old Diamond, and Ad Populum said they used that when they had that purchase set in stone that that Universal came in and took. They're saying, oh, well, during that time frame you were taking some of our people, and now we want to sue you. Ad Populum is still ghosting publishers. Publishers are not hearing anything from Universal at all. Bankruptcy Timeline actually revealed that it began in July of 2024, so it didn't happen in January. It looks like Diamond actually filed for bankruptcy in 2024, in the summer of 2024. And then Diamond ends cash on delivery sales. So that means that when you buy something from Diamond, you don't have to pay until it's delivered to your store, which is a buffer for the comic retailer so that if you don't get something that you paid for, you can go, hey, listen, here's a list of all the things I didn't get that I bought. I need those things, or I want my money back. Diamond is no longer doing that. Now, Aaron, you're probably thinking to yourself, wow, Diamond is kind of shitty.
Yeah,
and
kind of.
They're kind of a piece of shit company, honestly.
A little bit.
And I honestly, they shouldn't be in charge of distributing comics, and I don't like them, and they're a bunch of assholes. And Aaron, you wouldn't be wrong there, but there's also more. There's a little bit more that Diamond's been doing here recently as of last week. So Diamond sent out a letter this Friday. So we're recording this on June 14th. So this was on June 13th, literally yesterday, that retailers no longer have a no-cost return. Their policy is gone with the no-cost return. Now, Aaron, we've talked about this before. This is absolutely a direct hit to the direct market and to comic retailers, because for a long time, comic retailers could order a ton of Venomverse number 3. They could order 70 copies, and then they could send back 40 for a, let's say, 70% return. You would get like a certain amount return, and it helped Diamond and it helped the retailers. It was a sort of a win-win for everybody.
A little safety net.
Exactly. It allowed retailers to take a little bit of a chance on some of the bigger 2 books. I even think that like Image and I think Boom Studios for a long time did this as well, where like if you ordered a number 1 of a new book, you would have a no cost return policy immediately. Order 100 copies of this book, and if they for some reason don't sell, return them, and we're fine with it. Well, as we talked about before, this is a big thing, right, for retailers, and basically says that all of this backstock that retailers now order from Diamond, if they continue to stay with Diamond, is basically unsellable. It's unsellable backstock. If you've ever been to one of those big retailers, you know that some people just have an insane amount of backstock for whatever reason. I don't really know why. So not only that, but this no cost route could also act as a consignment route for larger retailers. So we're thinking of like Mile High Comics or Downtown Comics in Indianapolis or Midtown Comics in New York. All of these retailers that have a ton of stock, they could order a bunch of stuff for their store, but then not have it delivered. Because if you've ever been to Midtown Comics, you know that that's not a big store, at least not the one in Times Square. So they could just keep it at the warehouse and then have it shipped when they needed it. That's gone. All right. No longer available to those retailers. Now, if they want to get a bunch of stock, a bunch of toys, a bunch of Beta Ray Bill statues or Spawn trading cards, sorry about you. It's not happening anymore. You have to, if whatever you order, you have to take. Last thing I'll say before we move on from this is that Diamond, its net worth has dropped quite a bit in the last 4 or 5 months. It was originally worth $10 million. It is now worth negative $5 million. So down with Diamond. I'll continue to yell from the mountaintops. Aaron, anything you want to say about this?
Diamond.
Like what is your read on this? As someone who's not really privy to a lot of this stuff, I don't think. What are your thoughts?
Honestly, they just sound like a huge bag of dicks.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you nailed it on the head there.
And I wish them nothing but the worst. And a quick removal from the industry and a slow descend into oblivion.
Yes. They are officially the winners. We're only in June, but I don't know if we're going to have this award come December for our Last Call Awards, but biggest assholes of the year would undoubtedly go to Diamond this year and the previous 5 years that we've been here on the Oblivion Bar podcast. Because I've, again, been vocal about it. They suck. Diamond has sucked. As someone who's worked at a comic shop, they are not great. They just are the worst to work with. They would never get orders on time. Things would come in broken, or you would get 1 in 100 variants of Moon Knight #2 that would be just destroyed. It's just a horrific route for comic retailers. And I hope that while this isn't great, again, Aaron, we've talked about how like sometimes the devil you know is better than the devil you don't. I'm hoping that after a little bit of struggle, because it's undeniable, this is going to hurt a lot of comic retailers. A lot of stores are going to fail because of this, because they have invested so much money, because they had to invest so much money into the success of Diamond. Unfortunately, some of those stores are going to close, but I hope for like the larger picture. And I hate to sound sort of broad and uncool about all this, but hopefully the comic industry is in a better place after the destruction of Diamond and whatever's left of it. So, Aaron, anything else before we move on to our main topic?
No, that's a bit heavy. I'm again, I said what I said, but I just, I hope that the businesses that are affected by this are able to last as much as they can, are able to bounce back, are able to recover. Cause I know it's going to be a hard process, a hard journey. But obviously we, shop local. This is why it's so important to shop local. So that they can still stand on their own feet while having to deal with big business bullshit like that.
100%. Well, once again, thank you so much to Oni Press. Again, one of our favorite small publishers. Thank you for supporting the show. Thank you for supporting the news and notes segment. Aaron, let's get into the next installment in the Predator franchise. But before we get to that review, we're going to take a quick break and we will be right back.
In stores this June, Oni Press proudly presents a science fiction icon's unlikely return to existence in Benjamin #1, a new prestige format limited series from Philip K. Dick award winner Ben H. Winters and artist Leah Max.
Do you remember the work of acclaimed novelist Benjamin J. Karp? Across more than 44 novels and hundreds of short stories, Karp established himself as a counterculture revolutionary. He died in 1982 after years of Southern California excess finally claimed his life.
Until 2025, when Benjamin Karp awakens, alive in a burned-out motel on the fringe of Los Angeles. He remembers dying. He knows he shouldn't exist. Is he a dream? A robot? A ghost? A clone? A simulation? In his own time, Karp pondered all of these scenarios through his fiction. And now, as he treks from Studio City to Venice Beach and onward into the paranoid sprawl of 21st century Los Angeles, he will be called to investigate his greatest mystery yet, himself.
Explore the metatextual nexus between existence and oblivion, past and future, genius and madness this June with Benjamin #1, only from Oni Press.
Main topic.
Alrighty, let's talk about Predator, Killer of Killers, the latest installment in the Predator franchise, the latest and actually first animated movie from this franchise, excuse me. Gosh, Aaron, what a bummer about Diamond. I can't stop thinking about it, but it's time to get over it. All right, it's time to talk about the Yautja. Is that Yautja? Am I saying it correctly?
Yautja. Yout, say it with me. Yout. Ja. Yautja.
Okay. All right, cool. Aaron, initial thoughts on Killer of Killers. Again, the subject matter expert here on the Oblivion Bar podcast when it comes to all things Predators and Aliens and Terminator and Kaiju, Transformers, Muscle Mommies. What else? A lot of things.
Just weird shit.
It was just the weirdest stuff here on the Oblivion Bar.
The weirdest concoction. Spoilers ahead.
Spoilers ahead for everybody. If you haven't seen this, go watch on Hulu right now and Disney Plus, depending on where you're at in the world.
Okay, so initial thoughts: entertaining, fun, cool, a little anticlimactic.
Interesting. Okay, so maybe slightly disposable from your end.
Yeah, I mean, important.
Yeah,
interesting, but not riveting.
I can see that. It's definitely entertaining. My initial thoughts are that I really enjoyed watching this. It did feel like there was a big something missing. And I feel kind of slightly stupid by not knowing exactly what that is, but it definitely felt without somewhere. I do really like Dan Trachtenberg in charge of this universe. It seems like I remember at one point watching this, and I think it was maybe halfway through the sword bit of the film, that I was like, gosh, I'm just really happy that Dan Trachtenberg is in charge of this universe.
Yes.
Because he clearly is like we were talking about earlier at the beginning of the episode where you said you're a fan, you've been a fan for a long time. You read those S.D. Perry comics, you read the old Dark Horse comics and all the things. Clearly, so has Dan Trachtenberg because he's taking important parts from that universe over into this new 20th century continuity.
Yes and no. There are some things that I have issues with.
Okay.
But at the same time, and I'll explain why, because
can I ask you really quick? Is it issues that it's not sticking to that previous continuity, or is it that you don't like the changes that he's made?
If you introduce certain examples of a society, like the background of a society, without context, people are just going to assume that is the way it is for the entire species, right?
Sure.
If you see a dog that you've never seen a dog before, you see a dog that's like sniffing a fire hydrant, you're like, oh, dogs really like fire hydrants.
Yeah.
But if you see a dog sniffing a cop car, and you'd be like, oh, dogs find cop cars really interesting. I'm going to think all dogs think cop cars are interesting.
This is an interesting analogy, but I get what you're saying.
Yeah, and that's the way it is for this. And I'll explain once we get a little bit more into the kind of the premise of the movie itself.
Yeah.
But this, I'll just say this, for me, this absolutely should have been a show.
Yeah. This would have benefited from 6 episodes.
Yeah.
Right. Like I would say 1 episode for each person, or I would say even 5 episodes or 4 episodes. Give me 4 episodes of this, 3 of each person and how they fought each of their individual predators. And then 1 full, I'll say 30 to 40 minute episode where they have to escape the finale of this whole movie. I think that I absolutely agree with you. That would have definitely been a much better route. Well, let's get into our summary here, Aaron. For the uninitiated, for some reason, spoilers ahead. If you are still listening, if you haven't seen the film, go watch it. Or if you just want to listen to us talk about Killer of Killers, Aaron, let's go ahead and do the summary here.
All right. The shield, the sword, the bullet. 3 of the fiercest warriors in human history become prey to the ultimate killer of killers.
That's right. Well, and that's pretty basic again. And I hope that this doesn't sound super pessimistic, because I will say just at the top, I enjoyed this. I had a good time with it.
I did too. I did enjoy it, but
yeah, but, and we'll get into that but here. And I think part of it is, Aaron, my slight, not full satisfaction with this is because of how great Prey was, right? Like Prey.
Exactly.
If you remember when that movie came out, was so like such a breath of fresh air, sort of a totally out of left park, just like incredible work from Dan Trachtenberg.
It was an undisputed banger because nobody anticipated like just what we got, and it was great.
Yeah.
And that's what I can already identify, and I'm just going to throw it out there because you said it felt like there was something missing.
Mm-hmm.
What was missing was the one thing that we get in every Predator film, which is the real like visceral fight to the death with a major predator.
Yeah, that's true.
And we got deaths of predators, but there's no like motivation to why like they're like. So again, this I'm just going to say it because I got to get it out of my system.
Do it.
What we know about predators, at least what I understand about predators, is they go cyclically to, and it's every 100 years they come to Earth or other planets, and they send unblooded younglings or pups that are adolescents of the predator species, of the Yautja species. They send them to wherever they go, Earth, for example, and they go and they go on the hunt, and they have to find a worthy adversary. And now, true, could they just go and kill something and bring a skull back and say this is a worthy adversary? Everything is recorded and transmitted from their helmet back to their Yautja Prime, which is the name of their homeworld, to be studied and brought into the species to make the entire species better.
But and I also think that they're like very. I mean, if you've seen any of the films, and I'm thinking it's very again specifically of the first one, they are a prideful species that like even if they weren't being recorded or whatever, they would do it for themselves. It's
the honor code. Their entire society is built on the honor system of these hunts.
Yes.
And so that's 100% correct, Chris. So for me in this movie, you're telling me that the only reason that these guys came to this planet is to kidnap these like prime candidates?
Mm-hmm.
Like that to me is kind of like, that's odd. And that's not what we know of the predator species. However, the Yautja species was not always known as the Yautja. They were originally known as the Hishi. And the Hishi were a less progressive species that were actually forced into like slave labor by another species, where they eventually rose up and took over. And part of the reason that they hunt now as part of their honor system is because that's what the species, I think they're called the Ameji, they made them hunt for sport and for entertainment, and they adopted that when they revolted against their captors.
I want to see that story. I want to read that book because that sounds amazing. And can I get like a big gripe out of the way from the very beginning? Not just about Killer of Killers, but I think just like as the Predator franchise as a whole, is that, you know, the Yautja are like known as these ultimate warriors. They are the warrior in the universe, in this universe specifically. But I think just like in pop culture in general, you know, like they are the warrior species. They're getting their ass beat in every movie by like the most by the most unequipped, untalented people. And I know we see a lot of, you know, we got the shield, the sword, and the bullet in this movie. And I think that those are all capable folks, mostly.
No, I digress.
You want to add a little bit there?
I want to say the sword and the shield are capable.
You don't like the bullet?
The bullet? What the fuck? Okay, he's not a fierce warrior.
He's like Batman and Justice League. He's just running and
he got I mean, to be honest, he's smart, but he's not like he didn't. Okay, the only thing he did was like kind of take advantage of an opening in this battle. He is not like any other fierce warrior that killed a shit ton of people and then was hunted by a predator, and then like the only person he killed was a predator.
Yeah.
That's it.
I just I have the same complaint about like Galactus in the Marvel universe or Darkseid in DC's universe. Like writers will put up folks, superheroes, whomever, against these otherworldly, extremely powerful beings. And I'm thinking again of the Predators in this universe. They put them up against these people to show how they can overcome adverse. But what you do is you end up diluting the power of these characters that we know to be the most powerful, right? Like if we constantly see the Predators getting their ass beat, we no longer find them that compelling of a fighter ever.
Well, let me ask you this. In this movie, okay, well, we got to go into a little bit more detail, but in this movie, why would a lone Predator take a ship and just start decimating other aircraft?
Yeah, it seems really out of character for what we know about Predators. But again, I think it's important to know, and I'm not saying that it's right. I'm just saying that this is a new universe, right?
This is a new,
Like this, I think from Prey on, I don't think they're really even acknowledging Predator or Predator 2 outside of the gun, or Predators or any of it. Like they're not even Alien versus Predator. None of it is currently in canon officially for this 20th century universe.
Well,
I think it's proven though with Prey, because that gun
exactly. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like that makes all of it. The only thing that we haven't recognized necessarily is like Predators and the newest Predator, like
the one by Shane Black.
Yeah. Those other two seem like the other Predator films seem to be definitely alluded to, but these ones do not. So, I will say at the end of this conversation, we will talk about a theory that I think maybe connects the first film to this. So a little teaser for that. But this film, Aaron, was actually animated by Unreal Engine. It was one of the first feature films to do so, and drew some stylistic influences from Akira, which we talked about not too long ago here on the show during a Midnight Rewind segment. And then Netflix's Arcane. Now, have you watched Arcane? Are you familiar with that? Do you enjoy it? I really want to watch it. It's another thing that's on my list of things to watch. I don't know. It's from the League of Legends
that's
franchise, right. And I've heard it is amazing, and I do want to watch it. I just, again, it's because of my lack of connectivity with League of Legends. It's not something that's like screaming out to me.
Sure. And I've heard good things about it. All right. So this sort of speaks on what we were talking about earlier. The opening epigraph marks the first time the species was actually called Yautja. This was used this is the first time it's been used officially in a Predator film. So even in the first Predator, Predator 2, Alien vs. Predator, all of those, they don't refer to them as that. This is the first one. The term is actually introduced in the Expandiverse, as we've talked about many times here thus far, by Steve Perry's 1994 original Alien vs. Predator comic series. That was the first time they were referred to as Yautja. So Aaron, talk a little bit about our director here, who we've already said his name, Dan Trachtenberg. Talk a little bit about what he's done here recently.
Yeah, so Dan Trachtenberg, obviously Predator Prey, but he did Predator Badlands, which is the upcoming I think that's a show, is it not?
That's a good question. I actually think it might be a film, but you continue on.
So Prey was 2022. The upcoming Predator Badlands is 2025. But before that, back in 2016, which I did enjoy the movie, was 10 Cloverfield Lane, which was
the best one.
Yeah.
I mean, debatable between Cloverfield, but I think depending on what you're
definitely
really
not
wanting.
Paradox.
Yeah, definitely not Paradox for sure. Because that really,
which was cool. I enjoyed it. It was just like a silly cool.
Okay, so yeah, Badlands it's going to be a film. We've already seen trailers for it. As we know, Elle Fanning is playing a synthetic in that. So clearly there's a if it's not connected to the larger Predator universe, the previous one, it's definitely connected to the Alien universe, which I think we all kind of already assumed anyway. So moving on here, and actually we talked about this recently during our Thunderbolts review, that Trachtenberg actually directed that 2016 Black Mirror episode Playtest, which stars Wyatt Russell and Hannah John Kamen. Aaron,
I do remember that one now.
That's the one, where he is stuck in a video game simulation where it like is in your brain. I think it's probably one of the better Black Mirror episodes. Definitely recommend that. And then in 2013, this Aaron, as you know, this part right here really spoke to me. Dan Trachtenberg was announced to be the writer and director of Brian K. Vaughan and Pia Guerra's comic series film adaptation of Why the Last Man. Trachtenberg eventually left the project, and Why the Last Man was converted into a television series over on FX. So,
did you watch any of that?
I did, and I liked it. It definitely was a bummer because it came out around COVID, and I just don't think that people were really wanting to see something like that at that time, because Why the Last Man is very sort of post-apocalyptic with just women at the helm of the world, plus one guy in his ampersand. So anyway, it's good. And again, Why the Last Man's incredible. I absolutely love it. It's one of my favorite comic series of all time. But I kind of understand why it wasn't renewed for a second season. So
yeah, kind of like was it Tomorrow World with George Clooney? It was a little too in the face at that time.
Right. Yeah. Timing is very important for a lot of these type of films and such. So Aaron, let's talk about the cast. And I will say, just sort of before you get into it, is that the cast, not incredibly important, but there is like a couple tidbits that are pretty interesting for like Predator fans in general.
Yes. So you got Lindsay Levanchi as Ursa, Louis Ozawa as Kenji, and Kiyoshi Kamakami. Rick Gonzalez as John J. Torres. Michael, I think it's Bean as Vandenberg or Vandy. Doug Cockle as Einar. Damian Haas as Anders. Lauren Holt as Freya. And Britton Watkins as the Predator warlord dubbed Grendel King.
That's right. The uncredited animated likeness of Amber Midthunder, as we see there at the end of the film, was featured representing a frozen Naru. She is one of the Comanche hunters she was the Comanche hunter, the main character from Prey, as we talked about. So still alive.
I'm just going to say this, since we just kind of talked about this viewing, this reveal. I'll call it a reveal. This would have been much better placed post credits or mid credits.
I get what you're saying. Absolutely. It does kind of act as like a end credit scene, because it's like the film has essentially ended and they're showing Ursa being taken off. She's back in cryostasis, and you just see Naru in the background, frozen as well. So is Hutch back there somewhere?
I mean, did you not see that there was like a blonde male that was a little bit shorter in the pod before Naru? So that's who I was kind of thinking that it could be.
Sure. And then I wanted to ask you really quickly, and I don't know if we actually get to it here in the transcript, but for the Grendel King, this is like your big bad predator. Do we ever see a version of him in any other media? Have we seen anything like him?
Not that I'm aware yet. And that's the interesting thing. His design was very unique, because I am not aware that they're dreadlocks. Now, if to me that looked like it was his dreadlocks, instead of just like a cape. If that was not a cape and those were his dreadlocks, I have not seen any. No, so okay, little I guess inside baseball or background information would be predators can live up to potentially thousands of years. Like, we don't know their lifespan. They're not officially in adolescence until they've hit about 60-ish in human years. And so that's when they become like the unblooded, like younglings that get ready to go out on their first hunt. But I have never seen or heard of anything in the lore of Predator that says that their dreadlocks grow as they get older. So to me, that was kind of like a weird thing.
Interesting. Yeah. I mainly wanted to bring him up just because he's obviously bigger than most of the other ones. But to me, it kind of looked like xenomorph tails. Did that strike you at all?
It did a little bit, and I was looking at him like this is interesting. Yeah, like
I think that'd be really cool if it is. I think that they've been asked about that. Dan Trachtenberg was asked about it, and he didn't really confirm or deny. I think he even sort of said like, "We're going to leave it up to the fans to talk about that," which means that they didn't plan it to be that. But
yeah,
I think that would be a cool sort of connectivity between those two. And we talked about that pistol earlier, and we see it in Prey. We've seen a version of it in Predators 2. And Aaron, why I said earlier that I don't think that these films are connected to those previous films is because the name on the gun is different from Predators 2 to Prey to this film. Now, Prey and this film are the same, but Predator 2 has a different name. And part of that reason is
Are you sure?
Yeah, 100% positive. Because the original was, the name was for the colonial officer that a Predator killed. That officer gave his gun to this is from a comic series called 1718. And that officer gives a gun to the Yautja, and the Yautja takes it. And then eventually he gives it to someone in it's sort of used as a trophy in Predators 2.
I'm just looking it up right now, and it says the flintlock pistol featured in Prey is the same one that appears in Predator 2.
I think people assume that because they look exactly the same and the names are similar, but the names are different between Predators 2 and Prey.
Okay.
Because
I'm going to do my own homework.
Yeah. Do your own research.
Yes.
Okay. While you're looking up COVID conspiracy theories, look up the gun from Predators 2, because the gun that we see given to Naru in Prey is a different character than the one that the gun was given to in 1718 comic series that is referenced in Predators 2.
Okay, because
I do some research. Come back.
The flintlock pistol is presented to Harrigan by the Predator as a trophy engraved with the name Raphael Andolini in 1715. The same pistol appears in Prey, which is set in 1719, as a weapon used by the protagonist Naru. I'm going to do some fucking research. I'm going to be sending you some pictures later. Anyway, I don't want to detract from this conversation. So, so Michael Biehn plays Vandy, Torres's commanding officer, who an obvious nod to Bean's role as Hicks in Predator's sister franchise. Vandy's demise in this film means that Bean is the third actor alongside Lance Henriksen and Bill Paxton to have been killed by a xenomorph, a T-800, and a Yautja.
Yeah, that's right. All those actors have been in an Alien film, in a Terminator film, and now in a Predator film. So that's pretty cool.
You want to hear something interesting?
Please.
Actually, really, it's not really that interesting, but a xenomorph. Okay. Like the regular xenomorph that we know, that we've seen in a lot of the Aliens films, is their like designation by the Yautja is like species XX121.
Why is that? Is there any particular reason why?
No, I just thought it was neat.
Is that why it's not interesting? Because there's no real reason behind it?
Yeah, there's no real reason. It's just I thought it was neat.
Louis Ozawa previously played the character Hanzo in Predators from 2010. That's that. I don't know actually who directed that, but I actually don't mind that. That's the one with Adrian Brody.
Yeah. And Lawrence Fishburne.
Yeah, and Walton Goggins is in it too. It's actually got a pretty good cast. Like it's
Spider-Man's in it. Topher Grace. Topher Grace. Yeah.
Well, Eddie Brock. Yeah. But anyway, yeah.
It's Eddie Brock. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Anyway, it is like, I feel like I remember not really loving that movie back in the day, and I've recently rewatched it. It's not bad. Like, I don't hate it. I think it's a totally serviceable Predators film.
There's like this scene where they're like, when they hide in the ship and the Predator is like on the ship, like trying to get inside. And it reminds me exactly of the artwork that's on your shirt.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Yeah. So everybody and we sort of referenced it earlier. Aaron and I were talking about our different shirts. My Predator shirt is the cover of the comic from 1989. It's the Paul Chadwick cover from back then. So it's honestly, Aaron, I think it's one of the best comic covers of all time. That's no hyperbole. I think it really is. That orange background, it's so incredible. So as the movie progresses, we get an idea how Yautja used chain weaponry evolves from each segment. So at the beginning, in that first one during the Shield, we see how the Yautja becomes inspired by the idea after Ursa uses a chain and anchor to kill her opponent. And then in Japan, the Yautja in that era utilizes a chain weapon as a long-range weapon. However, its flaws might not capture the exact target, and the chain would still need to be retracted, which of both Kinji exploits in the defeat of his enemy. And then in the Atlantic, during the bullet segment, the Yautja fires a honing missile that seeks out its target. Its target's heat signature, and then it doesn't return to the wielder until it's prompted. Essentially, Torres tricks one of the missiles into hitting the engine instead, which, as you said earlier, is kind of his trickster way of defeating the Yautja there. So Aaron, we sort of talked about it. We have the shield, the sword, and the bullet. Is there anything in particular? Which of these 3 segments was your favorite? I feel like I might know what it is, but just tell me for my own.
It was definitely the shield.
Oh, interesting. Okay, I was wrong then. I thought it was the sword.
No, it was the this is a weird confession. There's the shield when there's a part in the episode where, or I guess episode in that portion where Ursa, like, they open the gate and she goes in to kill whatever if it's Oren's people, and she's just like, she's got the 2 shields and she's just fucking people up with the 2 shields. I was like, I fucking love her.
Yeah.
I was like,
one of the most active grandmas in history. I don't know how old she is exactly, but that is a good story. I think that's
total
a
gilf.
Total gilf. My close second, I think, is that. My favorite is the sword. The feudal Japan, where you've got 2 brothers who basically want to find the love of their sort of emotionless dad, and one of them, they basically decide that they're not going to fight each other, and then one of them decides to do it, and then I think it also has the best action. I think the bullet is by far the weakest of the 3 stories, but didn't hate it still. I think it was fine.
Yeah. The sword was really cool because of Kenji, like, leaves because Kyoshi is obviously, like, set to become the new, like, samurai type guy.
Mm-hmm.
And then Kenji leaves, and becomes like a ninja. So it's like ninja versus samurai.
Yeah.
And there's like, when he is getting into the compound, into Kiyoshi's compound, and he's trying to stop the guys from ringing the bell.
Yep.
And he's just like, when somebody on another tower rings the bell, and he's just like, fuck. And he just drops the dude. I was like, this is great. Like, that was by far, like, personality wise, my favorite, but fighting wise was the shield for sure.
Absolutely. Now, does this mean, now that we've got technically Ursa has been captured by the Yautja per the end of this film, but and this includes Naru from Prey, does this mean that we're going to get a team up? Is this going to be like Avengers style team up in the next film, you think? Maybe not in Badlands, but in like a future film where we get these 4 together?
Feel like this is again, I feel like this was left so open-ended that it's preparing for either like an ongoing series, or like at least a sequel or 2, maybe even like a trilogy type thing with each of these characters. Now, what's interesting though is, again, I feel like they should have done a little bit more to kind of set the timelines apart differently.
Mm-hmm.
What I think would have been really cool is if they had done like if they would have kind of like had there'd been like a filter on each of the stories to kind of fit their like timeline. Can you imagine like a black and white, almost newsreel for like the World War, or for the one in the Atlantic?
Yeah.
And then have kind of like almost like a sepia-ish for the samurai versus ninjas type thing. And then I don't really know what you could do for the shield version, but I just think like that would have been really cool to kind of like set them apart as far as their storylines, and then at one point just kind of like bringing them all together and it's like in full color.
Yeah. No, I think that'd be really cool. I think it'd be fun. It'd be a fun storytelling method to sort of showcase how each era is different. Yeah. And I think really my big bummer in this movie is that we just didn't see Naru at all, and I don't think we're going to see her in Badlands from my understanding, but I know that Amber Midthunder has said that she wants to come back to the franchise, and that I think she has every plan to. So I think that regardless of how they put this team together, which I fully anticipate that they're going to, I think it may be a little naive not to think that in some capacity this team will get together and fight a team of either the Grendel King or someone else, is that, Dutch is not a part of this team in some way. I think that it's almost undeniable that Arnold Schwarzenegger will come back to this franchise either as a voice or something, maybe not as like a physical character perhaps, but I think as like definitely as a voice actor. I would not be surprised.
Oh, absolutely. Especially, I guarantee he's going to be interested, especially after what he did with Secret Level.
Oh, sure.
And his episode there, which was great, by the way. Didn't think he was going to be a good voice actor. Right. But I agree. Like, again, I feel like this is, to me, this became kind of like low hanging fruit once they didn't wrap it up the way that they should have, like with any kind of real climactic like battle.
Mm-hmm.
This was the Pokemon battle that Ash loses before, he loses and then manages to escape before he overcomes
adversary, and then
there's like a montage, something like that. Because I guarantee you what's going to happen. Is there's going to be something where they narrowly escape, they go into hiding, potentially some kind of like intergalactic like hunt for these characters. Kenji's going to get a new arm.
Yeah.
You know, there's going to be, and I think, and they're going to go and they're going to want to rescue Ursa.
Mm-hmm. I absolutely think that that's going to be the next movie, is them going to save her, probably recruiting Naru, like I said. And then maybe, again, if my theory is correct, if our theory is correct, that Dutch will be brought into this film either in the middle of that second film or eventually in that third film, would be my guess. But, and then speaking of Dutch, and Aaron, you sort of alluded to it already, in the cryo tanks there towards the end of the film, there's a mysterious man in one of the tanks. Looking closely at this fogged cryo chamber, the figure remains to be indiscernible other than to be a muscular blonde military man. This could possibly be Arnold Schwarzenegger's Dutch from the 1987 film, but being that he's one of the champions that beat the Yautja in that first film, and that they're collecting these warriors, it seems to be that could possibly be it. So
yeah, because they're going to have Danny Glover. They're going to have Adrian Brody. They're going to have Arnold Schwarzenegger, and that just seems like the obvious way forward with this, this team. Now, I'll say this: the thing that kind of I did like about this was the fact that it would finally give us an understanding, because I think that they tried to say what happened to Dutch during the Predator, like the new, like that newest one, but I don't think it was. I don't remember. I'd have to go into it a little bit more in depth. But if they didn't explain it there, then there was never any explanation to what happened to him following.
As he got off the island.
Yeah, when he took off in the helicopter and survived. Like there should have been more to it, and I don't even think they talked about it in Predator 2.
Well, there's an opportunity there. There's an opportunity to eventually connect those dots down the road now that they haven't explained it. So, Aaron, anything else you want to talk about before we go into our final thoughts? Did you like the animation style from this Unreal Engine? Were you a fan of how it looked just overall?
Yeah, I mean, I can't say that I honestly didn't have any complaints to it at all. I think it was very well done. I think the action followed the scenes very well. I think the camera work, if you call it that, like how the digital camera work was phenomenal. Like again, the sword fight was incredible.
Yeah.
And the way that they took it into they took so much detail and consideration during the battle that I really enjoyed that. Now, I just remembered that I did say that I had an issue with something that I did not talk about yet. And that's one thing that I wanted to bring up was I understand, and people if you care about Predator at all, or Predators, the species at all, you may argue with me, but there is an idea, because it's never been founded, that we don't know much about their biology, that they are cold-blooded because they live their world, Yautja Prime, is split into two biomes. One is a jungle, like a humid jungle, and the other is like a desert like scape. And that's what we saw with the Grendel Kings kind of area, was more of like a desert kind of landscape. And that would obviously mean that they are somewhat, because again, they see in heat, like, and they don't necessarily, again, the helmet gives them the ability to see in other, what would you call that? Like frequencies or modes, but they do see in heat. Basically, when they take the helmet off, the helmet just amplifies what they're able to do, like glasses. Up till now, it's been believed that they are cold-blooded, which means that if that predator coming from that kind of environment into Norse timelines, whatever, as soon as he hit that water, he would have gone almost into like a comatose state.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good point. I think it's important to, when it comes to these films, it's important to just sort of take them at surface level, because again, as I said earlier, I have sort of a weird problem with the fact that we keep having folks beating these predators. Like I think they need to win at some point in order I attribute this to like the prequels and Darth Vader. For many people who are younger than us, don't remember, I barely remember it, that for a long time Darth Vader was the villain, right?
Yeah.
And it wasn't until the prequels that people started to and I think people look at the prequels now slightly differently, but
absolutely,
for when they first came out, people were making fun of Darth Vader and Anakin Skywalker and all of that because of Hayden Christensen's portrayal in the films and all the things that George Lucas was doing.
An angel?
I don't like sand. It's coarse. All these things. It's almost like the more you know, the less interesting they become. And I think I kind of feel like that slightly with the Predators a little bit. Like, I think what made them so interesting in that first film is that you know nothing about them.
Yeah. And that's
outside
the thing,
of what you're shown.
That's one of those things that you like have to understand also, is that these predators that are coming to Earth are not battle tested.
Right.
They are, and they do come. That's the other thing, is like they also do come from different So there are the concrete predators.
Mhm.
They are the jungle predators. They are kind of like
There's different tribes.
The different tribes. Yeah. So again, it's like, yes, they are these big bad monsters. Yes, they kill a fuck ton of them, of humans. But at the same time, it takes one highly resourceful, highly intelligent, highly strategic human to use the same things, to use, you're on my turf now, bitch, and like to take them out. So true, we are seeing them being beaten by heroic and smart and I mean, I wouldn't say agile with Danny Glover, but again, like fierce warriors. I would say everybody that's faced the predators, the Yautjas so far has been a fierce warrior, except for this Torres kid, who I'm not super happy with that being introduced into this. But again, I think that's something that we just have to remember when we're watching these things, because if you want to go back to the original, like Predator versus Alien, they did win. The Predator did win. Yes, with the help of a human, but they did win.
Right. Yeah, that's true. Until they got chest bursted and then the second one happened. But point being is that I think that'll conclude our conversation about Killer of Killers. Aaron, what are you going to give Killer of Killers out of 5 David A. Weiners?
I'm going to give it a 3.
3?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can recommend it, but I'm not like in love with it.
Yeah. I think 3 sounds really good. I think 3. I'm going to give it a 3 as well. I think it's recommendable. If you like the Predator franchise, definitely give it a look. You're not going to be listening to us on that front. I think if you were a Predator fan, you were excited for this movie. But if you are a Predator fan for some reason, you haven't already seen it and you listen to this entire conversation, definitely go give it a look on Hulu. And not to mention, if you have Hulu or Disney Plus, why not? It's only an hour. It's like right at an hour, I think.
Hour and 25, I believe.
Okay. Yeah, that's right. Hour 25. So, all right. That'll do it for our review of Killer of Killers. Let's get into my favorite segment of the show, Aaron's Arcade.
It's time for Aaron's Arcade.
Hello. Welcome to Welcome to Aaron's Arcade, where I just talk about what I'm reading, playing, doing, watching, blah 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 blah. I'm gonna make this real quick because this game that I'm playing right now is a real quick game. It's called Summoner's War Rush. If you've played Summoner's War, if you know anything about mobile, games that are competitive, Summoner's War is probably a game that has been on your radar at some point. This is another spin-off because they've made millions of dollars and billions of dollars from Summoner's War. So this is more of your idle RPG type, like AFK type game. So away from keyboard. Again, Summoner's War Rush. It basically combines like tower defense, monster collection, all set within that Summoner's War universe. Players can collect and upgrade familiar monsters, battle in the sky arena, use them for automated battles, strategic tower defense games, which that's what I've been looking for, is a fun strategic defense tower game, because there's not really
defense game.
Yeah, there's not a lot that are just like free and simple to play. So this is really fun for me. Like I said, I'm going to make this real quick. So I'm just going to give you the highlights of what I like about it. It's super fun. It's easy to get into. There is not a heavy learning curve because pretty much in this one they've put like an easy button into it. Each character, each monster or mon that you summon from the scrolls has under their profile like certain hashtags, and they can be recommended for certain uses within the game. So instead of guessing and trying to build a team, they put it right there in the mon's profile. The combat's engaging. The stories are kind of fun. I just skip through it because I've heard all the stories and a little bit of the lore before. I just want to get my mons like super powerful and just kick some ass in the arena.
Trying to defend that tower.
Exactly, trying to defend that tower, baby. And that's the end of it. So if you, and again, I think I don't usually spend any money on this on games like this. This game was free, but I put $10 into it in order to get rid of all of the advertisements.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Which I'm so glad I did, because it gets you a wealth of stuff every day, and it's a one-time $10 payment. So other than that, I wouldn't spend any money on it unless you're a whale, as they call it. And that's all I'm going to say, because I wanted to keep this Aaron's Arcade short. So thank you for your time. Check out Summoner's War Rush, # not a sponsor. And now it's time for Chris's Corner, which is my favorite part of the show.
It's time for Chris's Corner.
Alrighty, this week for Chris's Corner, we're going to be talking about The Materialist. This is the brand new A24 film from Celine Song. It stars Dakota Johnson, Chris Evans, and Pedro Pascal. Aaron does not like Dakota Johnson. I like her. I don't, I think she's fine. I think she's for a while, Aaron, I'll be honest with you, her and her bad times at the El Royale era, like very briefly after 50 Shades of Grey era, I was a big Dakota Johnson fan. I'll be honest. And she's fine in this movie. I think
I want to call her Madam Meh.
Aaron has a very strong Madam Web prejudice against Dakota Johnson, which is fair. I get it. I totally understand it. She's better in this movie, I'll tell you. And then she's up against Captain America and Mr. Fantastic, because this is a film that follows a love triangle set in the backdrop of New York City's luxury-driven dating culture. Now, I actually saw this last night with my partner, Olivia. We both really enjoyed it. It is, I think, one of the more realistic modern updates to dating. And I think that if you're someone who is still single in 2025, it's probably really hard out there for you. I totally get it. Aaron, as you know, and as listeners may know, longtime listeners of the show know that before I met my partner, Olivia, I was like notoriously and copiously and cripplingly single. And it's hard. I get it to be, your late 20s, early 30s single person out there, especially in New York City. Aaron, I know you don't know what that's like because you're happily married, but like, I can only imagine how difficult it must be for people to find someone of substance that you connect with in a large city like New York City. So
I bet. Yeah.
Celine Song, she was the director of Past Lives, which is a real punch in the heart. If you've ever seen it, it's incredible. And this film, she wrote and directed that film. She wrote and directed this film. Highly recommend it. If you liked Past Lives, again, from A24, one of my favorite films of 2023.
I just watched that yesterday and it was
Past Lives.
Yeah.
Did you cry?
I was very close.
Yeah. I was in a theater by myself. Well, actually I had one other person in the theater. And
I'm not laughing at you. I swear.
I cried. Honestly, I'll be honest with you guys. It's definitely a heartbreaking film. And just to sort of contextualize a little bit, and I hope it's okay that I'm putting her business out, but Olivia was crying during this film. So it is definitely, I think, it's not like mind-numbingly incredible. I gave it a 4 out of 5. It's extremely well shot and directed and written. And I think that Dakota and Chris and Pedro all play their roles really well. You've got Pedro Pascal, who's sort of this like ritzy, financially advisor, rich guy who's obviously classically attractive. And then you got sort of a down on his luck, equally as attractive ex-boyfriend, Chris Evans. And she has to sort of decide, what sort of life she wants to live based on her partner, because in today's world, you have to take finances into effect and sort of keep that in mind. So anyway, Materialist, highly recommend it. It just premiered this week on Saturday, or I guess on Friday, June 13th. So I highly recommend it. I would say that if you are looking for something to watch this weekend, and if you've already seen How to Train Your Dragon and Ballerina, I would highly recommend The Materialist. So Aaron, that'll do it for episode 196. Next week on the show, big bucket list. Earlier, we were talking about creators that we've had on the show recently that were incredible conversations. This is one that I've been excited for a long time. And also I've been purposefully not inviting onto the show because I wanted to wait until a very special moment, and we have found it. Jeff Lemire will be joining the show, the Oblivion Bar podcast, to talk about his memoir over at Dark Horse Comics called 10,000 Ink Stains. Dark Horse has graciously reached out to Jeff and his team to have him on the show to discuss this. Very excited. I've been a longtime fan of Jeff Lemire, not only his creator-owned work, but things that he's done over at Marvel and DC. And Aaron, how familiar are you to Jeff Lemire and sort of his career thus far, outside of, let's say, Sweet Tooth? Is there anything else that you've possibly read from him?
I read a couple of issues of, was it Fish Flies?
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah. Over at Dark Horse.
Yes. And then there was Monsters. Was it called Monsters?
Yeah.
Little Monsters?
Little Monsters. Yeah. Him and Dustin Nguyen. Yeah. Are you a fan of his Absolute Flash run? Oh
yeah. Yeah. Duh. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. It's so weird.
It's hard to connect the dots with him with that.
It is. It's so like he's all over the place with his writing. It's so weird because every time I see like Jeff Lemire, Absolute Flash, I'm like, oh yeah, it's like I keep forgetting.
He is writing that. I forgot about that.
Yeah, that's him.
I also really liked his Swamp Thing run from a couple years ago called Green Hell. If you've ever want to read a cool modern Swamp Thing book, he also wrote a question story as well. And Aaron, longtime listeners of the show know that when we had our exclusive variant cover from Whatnot, we chose Phantom Road #1 from Jeff Lemire and Gabriel Walto over at Image Comics. So what a pleasure. Of course, we're going to bring that up, Aaron. We cannot not bring that up at some point during the conversation that we have our exclusive cover through him and his work. So next week on the show for episode 197 will be Jeff Lemire. Excited to discuss all those things with Jeff and 10,000 Ink Stains. So Aaron, that'll do it. Take us out of here.
All right. That's pretty exciting.
Mhm.
That's pretty exciting. You got to admit, that's pretty exciting.
Get excited. Yeah, I'm excited.
You are?
I'm kind of excited.
Between 1 and 10.
11.
Oh, 1 was being excited.
It's like 11 and a half, I think.
Was it, why don't they call 11 1D1?
What? Why?
No, I'm saying that's a question. Like,
Oh,
you know, it's 21.
These are real questions.
But we can't
Chris.
have 1T1.
1T1.
It's 11. So
11.
subscribe to our podcast, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, Audible, iHeartRadio, wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. That's where we are. Thank you to our patrons. I don't know why. Thank you to our patrons.
We should just say thank you to our programs.
Yes, thank you to the programs. Alex, Alice, Aaron, Botter, Chris S., Chris White, Christy, David, Elliot, Erica, George, Gianni, Greg, Haley, Ham6, Jake, Jeremy, Kyle, Losi, Mac, Miles, Mike, Olivia, Ryan, I, Robert, Saunter, Sean, Trevor, Travis, Zach, and Brad and Lisa. If you want to support the show without spending any money, like I said at the beginning of the show, you can just leave us a 5-star review. You could drop us a follow, whatever, on your preferred podcasting platform.
A written review?
A written review, anything helps. You know, even if it's just like a thumbs up emoji. It's all it takes, my friends. Follow us on Blue Sky, Instagram, TikTok, and Twitch at Oblivion Bar Pod. Official merch for the show is on our website of oblivionbarpodcast.com. Thank you so much, Sebastian. I think he sent us some pictures.
Sent us a picture. Yeah.
Yep. Of his
new tie-dye
gear.
shirt.
Man.
Yep.
Now we're tie-dye brothers. Big thank you to Oni Press and Endless Comics, Games, and Cards for sponsoring the show. Thank you, KXD Studios, for all of our Oblivion Bar art. He's at KXD Graphics on Instagram. Thank you, Dream Kid, for all of our musical themes. Thank you, DJ Skyvac, for our grid theme. And last but not least, as we say every single episode, do not forget to tip your bartenders 20% or more, or what's going to happen, Chris? The Yautja will find you.
The Yautja will try to find you, and they'll try to take your skull out of your body and take it home to their dun 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 dun. We didn't really even talk about how awesome Alan Silvestri's score was. It's incredible.
Oh, yeah.
It's one of my favorite scores of all time. All right, that'll do it for this
I was
week.
talking to my girlfriend the other day. I said, geez, you got a big pussy. Geez, you got a big pussy.
Why'd you say it twice?
I didn't.
We can say it at the end. It's fine. No one's listening at this point.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for listening to the Oblivion Bar this week. We will see you next week with Jeff Lemire for episode 197.